everybody, welcome on back to Unlimited Commander, and I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host Matt. Matt, how's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. I've had I had an interesting PDH game recently. So I was playing with some people. For people out there who don't know, PDH is Pauper EDH. That's when you play Commander, but you're only allowed to use uncommon cards as your Commander, and you have to run everything else in the deck at common. So it's a lot of things that you do not normally see in a normal Commander game. These games were going pretty well. I was playing Mr. Orfeo the Boulder. He like doubles the attack power of something when you attack.
Mhm.
So the whole deck was just like thick dummies with trample and like just swing in with a 5/5 and turn it into a 10/5 and suddenly everybody's scared, right? So it was my first time having to play PDH on stream, and we were going through the motions of it. I didn't know this, but apparently in PDH, life is 30 and commander damage is 16. So they were very scared of Orfeo, which makes sense. I didn't know it until I was dead to somebody's commander damage. But with 16 commander damage, Orfeo is pretty good. But we were playing this game, and someone like uh, was talking through the turn, and they were like, okay, this other person's going to win unless everybody is willing to push forward and kill this person. Uh, they are going to win this game. Okay, I know what I should do. Swing 8 at Matt. And I was like, wait, what? And then I start to draw my card for the turn, and they're like, well, hopefully Matt will do the right thing and follow the threat assessment I was just talking about. I'm like, nah, Jack, you just swung at me for 8. Everything's you're done. I don't care about winning this game anymore. It's not important.
So how did they did you at least knock them out beforehand?
Oh
Or at that
yes,
point?
oh yes. I
Excellent.
so after that swing of 8 on me, they'd left themselves almost entirely open. I pumped my they had like 3 life left. I pumped a creature, gave it trample with horned helm, which is equipment that you can flash equip to give it trample. And then they were like, well, I have this bounce spell, so I could stop you. And I'm like, you can stop me if you want, if you can try to if you want. And they were like, no, I'll just take the damage since you're so intent on killing me. I'm like, cool, then I'll use this fling to do the other 5 to someone else. And I just guaranteed the lock for the guy who was going to win either way because he had Pestilence out. And I did 2 damage to myself with Crushing Disappointment just to add insult to injury, and killed myself at the before the end of my own turn. So,
Oh, there's
like,
nothing like
yes,
going out on your own terms, eh?
yes.
Fabulous.
How about you? How are things going?
Pretty good actually. We just picked up an air fryer actually, and this has been a long running thing of I keep wanting one, and it was always like I don't know if we need one, and then we were out at a liquidation store this weekend, and we were walking past myself and my partner Libby, and as we were walking past the entrance shelf, they had like a stack of them, and they were like $35. And we're like, oh, do we actually want one now that they're here and like actually inexpensive? Like $35 is you would spend that like on a meal, even if you added in the food. That's like going out once,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm talking Canadian dollars,
Yeah.
so I guess for you that's like $3.50. But so we decided we'd pick one up, and this was on Sunday, and on recording we're on Tuesday, and it has been used for every meal for the last 2 days. We were finishing up a stream last night, and as I was on my way out, I said to the people that we were hanging out with, "Okay, well, I got to go. It's snack time." And they said, "Well, what are you gonna have?" I said, "Oh, cookies for sure." And I go out, and Libby had made little mini pizzas out of tortillas and like some or some pizza sauce and some cheese, and that was our snack, and it was marvelous.
That's so
I
awesome.
highly recommend air fryers to anyone who can get their hands on one.
God, I've been thinking about an air fryer for so long, and then every time I hear someone talk about it, one of the things that's said is like everything is pizza. You can just make a pizza out of it. You can put anything on top of some kind of bread, and it's pizza. And I'm just like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to eat pizza every. That's exactly what.
Well, I can attest that that is absolutely true after last night's experience.
Oh, that's so
Everything's
good.
pizza.
That's so good. Well, for those who didn't tune in last time, we gave everybody kind of an idea of who we are, what we do, what we're going to be talking about, and we brought up a lot of different formats and things like that. And if you didn't catch it, go back and listen to it. It's right there. I'm just saying. But we do talk about a bunch of different formats, and we got into some detail on some of them, and then we didn't get into some detail on other ones. One of the ones that got brought up was a cube, which Adam has a cube for commander. But I do have a question on that. What is a cube?
Funny you should ask, Matt. A cube is a curated collection of cards that is designed to be a self contained draft experience. As people build their cubes, they will sort through all the cards they find to be their favorite, their archetypes they like, and they want to see how they all play together. Whether you like, say, a +1/+1 archetype from one set and surveil from another, and you can kind of pick and choose the things you like the most and put them all into one box. Sometimes shaped like a cube, most times it isn't, but it's what we use as the name.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get together with a group of friends and you draft it as though you were drafting, say, a box of boosters of your favorite set. And you pick out packs and you sit down with your friends and then you draft up and then you play.
So a fun little history on the name cube. The original reason why it was called a cube is they thought that you needed a cubic number of cards in order to construct the right environments that you were trying to do. So like early cubes were like 343 cards. It's 7 cubed, and or things of that nature. So like it was always supposed to be a cubic number, and then they just found out that you can, as long as you're like curating your list right, it doesn't really have to be a particular number of cards. You need to have enough number for the people and all the stuff that you're doing, but like in general, anything could be a cube if you are curating the situation right. It just needs to be a decent number of cards for you to pass around. We just said draft as a reminder for people who don't know. This is the way draft generally works. You have packs, and in normal gaming system, you can just buy packs, right? Packs of a set or whatever. For a cube, you make the packs, but everybody starts off with a certain number of packs. Everybody opens their first pack and then looks through that, picks a card that they like that they think will work for their deck. They take it and then they pass their pack to the person on their left. Everybody does this across the table and continues to do this until that pack is gone. Then they pick up the next pack, do the same thing except pass to the right. Keep doing this until all the packs have been drafted. You've picked your best card, you've drafted the card, like football. And then you build a deck out of the cards that you got. That is the sort of short form version of how you draft something. So when you're building a cube, you said a curated list, cards that you like, cards that you think will work well together, cards that are themed toward a particular thing. But the whole idea is supposed to be for this access to make a draft format.
So then, after all that, then tell me something. Why would I not want to build one?
So that's the thing. So when you're dealing with a cube, I guess the restrictions lie in how you put together what you want. In theory, everyone who plays Magic regularly would want a cube around because it allows you the opportunity to play a format that you don't usually get to pay without spending money. And that is a huge bonus of having a cube. If you've already got cards and you put together a cube, you and your friends can draft that cube whenever you want, and you do not have to buy packs. You do not have to pay $3 or $3, $4 a pack for the new set. If you're playing 8 people, that's basically a box. Yeah. Oh, 6. Yeah, 6.
6 in the northern dollars.
6 in the northern dollars. Oh man.
5.99 for draft boosters these days up here.
Woo.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I don't have that in US. I can't pay attention. Um, but uh, so having a cube around can be really fun. I guess the reason why you might not want to have a cube, or rather, things you should think about when you're making a cube, similar to what we said about Boxmander, there is a pretty decent initial investment. Now, if you're already the kind of person who buys cards all the time and you have cards laying around everywhere, you could literally make a cube out of stuff that you have in your boxes at home, and it would not cost you any more upfront money commitment. If you're not that kind of person, you might have to do that. But it always has time commitment. And I've never built a cube, but I have played with other people's cubes, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But since you have built a cube, talk a little bit about this time commitment. Like,
So, the first and foremost is that while most of us have experienced building like a commander deck, and we know what it takes, like the at least few hours to come up with your idea, and then the hours of tinkering in between to tweak it up, and then the cumulative time that you spend as you play it or as new cards come out and you start putting these cards into your deck. You have to build 25 decks all at once. A lot of it has to do with like figuring out which archetypes you want, which is kind of like, what do I want my deck to do? And then you have to figure out all the cards that fit these themes and putting them on in there and comparing them to other ones, and figuring out which of these are going to straddle some of your strategies inside the cube, and making sure that all that's balanced out, making sure that the entire thing is balanced against one another, because while it is somewhat dependent on the people playing it and like their ability to draft and their familiarity with cards, a lot of it is just what cards are in there and how do they interact with one another. Because if you speak to anyone who's ever designed a draft set, like for reals, they're going to say that's the biggest problem. How do we make this so that one archetype doesn't just be the good one and then ruin everyone else? And we've seen this in other draft sets, like in standard sets that have come out even recently. I think Kaldheim was one where like if you weren't drafting snow, you weren't drafting.
mm-hmm.
So so a lot of it is just in like the mental exercise of running through. As an example, mine is 430 cards.
Okay.
So I had to choose out 432 cards and evaluate them all against one another, and figure out which ones were going to fit my themes, which ones were going to be too powerful, underpowered, all these different things that you would normally consider for a regular deck construction.
Mm-hmm.
And then cram all together. And whilst you will only pull out maybe 4 to 8 decks out of a cube on any given time you draft it, you still have to consider that there's a potential of, I don't know, depending on what you're doing, is there a potential of a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen decks that could come out of this. And it depends on what you're going to put in there too. Again, I have in my own, and we'll evaluate my personal cube another day, but I have put in a lot of the uncommon partners from the first Commander Legends. I've put a lot of the background commanders from Battle for Baldur's Gate. And so playing these variables, that is even more deck. And if you listen to our previous episode, there was a story about one of our friends that has built a deck out of a deck they built from my cube. And it is Gut, True Zealot, and Feywild Visitor was the commanders that they chose. 2 cards that have no business being together. None at all, right? And in taking those 2 cards, they managed to construct a deck that was very functional in the cube and out of the cube. And that is not something I ever saw happening. Mm-hmm. I didn't look at these cards and say, hey, are these going to work together if somebody drafts the 2 of them as commanders? You don't think about all that. And this is stuff that I spent hours poring over.
Absolutely. And, it's good to remember when you're building a cube, I think, to remember that uh, there are people paid to build curated draft experiences by Wizards of the Coast who still have troubles doing what we do. Like we mentioned Kaldheim, the big one that always gets talked about, I think, when it comes to Arena, if you play the online client, was Throne of Eldraine. Throne of Eldraine was actually a really good curated format, but originally on Arena you could only do drafts against robots, and the robots highly undervalued the decking sub theme of blue in Eldraine. And because of that, on Arena, everyone was playing this degenerate control decking deck every time that you went into draft because it was open, so they took it. And it just made playing Eldraine on Arena terrible. And it sifted into Eldraine as a format in general on in paper for a little while because people were like fighting over these like really actually very bad like decking pieces because they remember playing it on Arena and it working and getting them there.
Hmm.
And so you never know how cards are going to interact. But one of the cool things about building a cube is that you have power to change issues that crop up, and you have unlimited time in terms of being able to curate that experience again. So if something cool shows up, you keep it, or maybe you make it grow. You add something to it that makes it a little neater. Or if you find something that's just like everybody's trying to draft this commander, everybody's trying to make this deck work. I'm gonna slash this commander and put in a commander of the same colors that does a slightly weaker effect to try to pull things out. Or I'll take out the two cards that everybody needs to draft in order to win with this deck and put in two cards that are similar that are more expensive or something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, and that balancing is a big part of it too. Like if especially when you, like the larger your cube gets, because depending on how many people, the format you're playing, like your number your required cards kind of varies. I will say that like 432 is a large number for a cube.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because mine is a commander cube. Again, something we'll get into another two.
Yeah.
But I do want to go back and touch on one thing because you had said that like you could get away with this if you have all the cards. There's one thing that like almost has to get bought, which is kind of unfortunate. You're really careful with your choices and careful with your
Mm-hmm.
physical cards. Is that sleeves are a sleeve deal?
Mm-hmm.
If you decide you want to sleeve your cube, which most of us like sleeving our cards for protection and customization and stuff like that. I went with for protection purposes personally, but
Mm-hmm.
because I chose a very inexpensive sleeve, but I had to buy 15 packs of sleeves or something like that at like 50 sleeves per pack. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you're gonna build all these, you need sleeves for every card in the cube. You need sleeves for all the basic lands that are gonna go with it, because you do need to provide basic lands for your cube and anything else that you might have on the side to sleeve up. Again, something we'll talk about another time.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, like you need a boatload of sleeves, and you can't find either. Oh, and they all need to match. This is the important part. Sorry, all the sleeves need to be one kind of sleeve because any card could go into any deck. All of the basic lands could go into any deck. So you need to buy all of one sleeve, a very large number. I needed like 200 for my basic lands. I needed almost
Mm-hmm.
500 for everything else. So I'm looking at 800 sleeves. You start looking at 15-ish dollars Canadian
Mm-hmm.
again, $1.50 US, but $15 Canadian for 100-ish sleeves. That's $125 or something along those lines. 130 bucks, 140 bucks,
Yeah.
160 maybe 160 is the more accurate number. Either way.
For sure. It gets really expensive really fast. Actually, while we're here, quick tip from LGS people who work at your LGS. I think Adam and I have both worked in LGSs before. I worked in LGS both as a an operator of my own LGS within the LGS and in the store as one of the employees for the other games. Uh, and I can tell you a couple things about this that might make your experience with sleeves a little easier. First off, if you don't have a good rapport with your LGS owner, you should try to get one. And, most of that has to do with just being a cool person, saying hey, asking about the day, like general good conversational stuff. But also, if you were going to buy a card from them, make sure you do it. Like little things like that will add up. Good, you get good business credit with your LGS. And if you have that going with a local game store, sometimes when you're doing these big things like getting sleeves for a cube, you can go, hey, me, I come in here all the time. We're, we get along well, and I have something that I'm trying to do. It's going to require a lot of a particular sleeve. It's like, I don't know, you want dragon shield ivories for your thing. Maybe you're one of those people. I don't know. I'm not. I'll always stick to bright colors or black, but you do you. And it doesn't hurt to pick a sleeve that maybe is potentially pretty ugly, because it's sometimes going to be the sleeve that's the most in stock and also the one that they're looking to get rid of the most. Uh, and then just be like, hey, I'm going to need like 10 or 15 packs of these. If I buy them from you in bulk, what can you do for me? And a lot of times your LGS can and will, if you have a good enough rapport with them, be like, okay, this is what I pay at cost, a couple extra bucks a pack, we'll work it out. And you can get some of that price chunked off. Mm-hmm. If you can't do that, go online and find someone who accidentally bought too much of metallicized blue and definitely is getting rid of it at $4 or $5 a pack, and go nuts. Like, get them all. Don't stop.
Personally attacked right now.
The funny thing about metallicized blue, Adam's cube is in this metallicized blue, is that you ended up one pack short.
Short
of what you needed.
Yeah.
And I started scouring my stuff because that was the color I used all through my Yu-Gi-Oh days and my Yu Yu Hakusho TCG game, my Inuyasha days. I loved metallicized blue. So it should have been in my stuff. And the only ones I found were the Japanese size sleeve ones, which are too small for fetch. And so I went and looked online to see if I could find one, and we found one pack, and it was as expensive as all of the packs that he bought combined.
Absolutely. It was terrible.
Just like, God.
It actually, in the end, it actually caused me to like redesign some of the rule sets of my cube to try and accommodate the days I actually had laying around. But again, that's
it's something to remember though. When you're planning on buying a cube or building a cube or whatever, after you have all the ideas down and all the cards you think that you want to collect, figure out the number of sleeves you need, including basic land. Don't forget basic land and tokens and stuff. And then probably add 4 or 5 packs on top of that, just to be safe. Like, it is an expensive endeavor, but if you ever want to expand your cube, if you ever want to, or if anything breaks, if you ever have a split sleeve, anyone who's played a commander deck knows what it's like to be they give you like 102 sleeves in a pack of dragon shields or something like that, and you're playing and you crack a sleeve and you've already used your 2 excess sleeves, and now you're done. You have to buy a whole nother pack, and it always feels bad. You're not sure if the color is going to be exactly the same, because one lime and another lime aren't necessarily going to be the same color green. Different I know batches, this from experience. I have a rogue like emerald sleeve sitting in front of me that was in my lime pile.
Doesn't match a damn thing.
Doesn't match anything. Clearly that card is marked. Matt's a big cheater. Everybody knows it.
Well, I already knew that. That's not news to me. I stand by the fact that every game we've ever played that you beat me, you were cheating.
I mean, that's the only way that I can win, because if I don't, I'm definitely going to get 3v1 sometime during the game.
Quick tip, fans. Cheat. It always wins.
No downsides.
So, one other thing that, and I don't know how much experience you've had with this, but I do know one other thing that's really tough is it's hard to get people together to cube.
Oh, absolutely.
I know that if you build a cube, and like there's a couple of reasons for it, and neither of them are wrong necessarily, but like for one is that you build your cube with enough people in mind. If you drop it below a certain number, you end up having to tweak some things, and maybe it doesn't quite go as well as you had hoped, or things end up a little bit mucky. But you have to have a certain number of people for it to work effectively. Just like any testing experience, honestly. Like if you crack a box of boosts with people, you're gonna have a bad time, right? Like those packs were designed to be drafted by a number of people, so you can get the stuff you need to be deck.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've got like specific themes in your cube that require multicolored cards or specific color cards or whatever have you. So it's always a little tough to get that many people. Mm-hmm. And another thing that's not really looked at much until you have a cube and you want people to play with you is that you really want to share this with people. So you're really excited to play. But keep in mind that other people have built their decks and are excited to share them with you too. So convincing people to come and draft cube is going to take a little bit of so what I'm looking for here, compromise.
Compromise.
Well, persuasion and compromise. Let's go hand in this, because you have to. Okay, well, I'll play your cube tonight, but tomorrow night we're gonna play with like our deck, or have you. Okay, guys, can we please put a time to draft my cube? Yeah, sure. And then it gets put off because everybody keeps building cool things. They all want to show them off how they want to play. Mm-hmm. So it's not even that it's like a negative thing, because everybody just wants to get together, fun, and show off their stuff. Mm-hmm. And as a cube owner and builder, you want to use that a lot. And also it's going to happen a lot less than people are going to want to just play their own decks. So you have to be okay with like putting it back on the. I actually saw a comic online at one point. I think actually Libby even shared it to me, which I felt really attacked by. But it was a little comic strip says, all right, we're going to play cubes. And somebody starts unpacking their cube, they're getting everything ready. And then says, actually, we play our regular decks. And you go, okay, cool. As you slowly put it all back in the cube, hiding your disappointment, trying to be a good man. And then in the end,
the dark thoughts.
yeah, trying to keep yourself cool, because you just and you'll find the time and the people that will play it, and you will, and you're gonna be able to experience spirit. You just have to be patient with people, because again, they're all doing cool stuff too, and you're gonna want to see what they want to see.
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about something like a cube and having access to it all the time is that when people do get a chance to play your cube, often after you've built a cube and people do play it, they want to come back and do it again. So my experiences with cube are inside of 60 card constructed formats. I had a buddy named Freddie. Freddie, if you're listening, good shout out, man. Miss you. We used to do once a month, we'd get together and we would eat. He had two cubes. He had one that was Modern Masters 1 and one that was Conspiracy. And to make his Conspiracy cube, he just bought 4 boxes of Conspiracy and put them together. Started sleeving everything up. That's the Conspiracy cube. And then the Modern Master cube was similar at first, and then eventually he ended up getting like 4 copies of every common, and 3 copies of every uncommon, 2 copies of every rare, 1 copy of every mythic, and then like would switch up the way the decks were built every time, and it was this crazy thing. But when we first did it, like the first time he called everyone out, he's like, I want everybody to come over. We're going to do a barbecue. We're going to, it's going to have beer. We're going to have all this stuff. The kids want to play cube. So we're going to do the Modern Masters cube that I got. And it was like, oh, I'm not super into Modern Masters or anything. That wasn't really my set, but I like barbecue and beer and hanging out with Freddie and his kids. They're fun. So sure, let's do it. And then after we did it, every like month we would do it again because it was like, hey man, like when's the next time we're gonna do a barbecue? I'll bring, blah blah blah. I'll bring the meat this time so that you don't have to do your thing or whatever, like. And we did this every month for like 10 months in a row because of how awesome it was to like get together and do this stuff. And he'd always like go like buy some rando like commander mythic that people needed and then be like, all right, y'all, whoever wins this pod gets the taste of Karlov, or whatever. And it was just like, yeah, let's do it. And so once you, as the cube builder, just remember to have that patience, because eventually you will find enough people who want to play your cube that you won't have to trick people into coming out or force them into these moments. They'll just come because it's fun to do. It's something cool to do. And if you're
Yeah.
doing it at home, barbecue helps.
Oh, too true. Too true. I'm gonna have to start doing that myself. Actually, that's great advice. Yeah. So like, those are all things. As a quick side note too, and I'll probably chuck it in the show notes because it's funny that way. I'm gonna write this down too. Prof has a set cube video. Look at that. We're real people. I wrote stuff down and I'm probably not going to cut it. So Prof actually, like at Tolarian Community College, a video on how to make a set cube that was really clear and informative. And if that's something you're interested in, I will put it in the show notes. And I highly recommend you check out Prof's videos on that. Basically everything else he's ever released, honestly. It's one of he's the all-time biggest Magic YouTuber, period. Mm-hmm. But that one was really good. It was really good. A lot away from it, even though I wasn't doing a set cube. It gave me some information on building my cube and how to format some stuff. So check that one out. If a cube Matt was referring to about Modern Masters, and I think he said another set, conspiracy. The conspiracy one's interesting. That's not how you would normally do it, but I actually am not about it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I will say, like, I think later he managed to do it so like he got a hold of one of each conspiracy so that you could at least like the conspiracies inside of the draft format and things like that. But like the first couple times he was just like, yeah, I'll just shuffle these things and then like, next time we'll gather all the commons, shuffle them up, do it again, pass them around. And it made, like, with 4 boxes, it was enough of a unique draft experience that it was like you could do it different each time. It was not a big deal. And eventually, once it was curated, I always drafted mono black because my friends foolishly leave mono black open for me to draft. And so this is funny. I had the same conversation in 2 different conspiracy drafts with the same 2 people on different months. So in like June, we played a game and I drafted mono black. I built this cool, I like Tyrant's Choice and things like that, where it's like, I'm not killing you. You chose what you did. You do, like all I did was play a card. You had to pick whether you lost 4 life or sacked a creature. You chose what you chose. I didn't do that for you. And
that's Sophie's choices aren't actual choices, but carry on.
Exactly. And so I was like, I was playing my deck and like I hit like a bunch of mana, but I wasn't really playing anything big yet. And people kept leaving me alone because I wasn't really doing anything. And then when I did do something, I'm like, well, I'd let you choose whether you lose 4 life or whatever. And this one guy got really mad and just started attacking me. Anyway, so he just starts dunking on me. And we get to this point in the game, and I'm like, all right, Will, here's the deal. I can kill you if you try to kill me. If you try to kill me, I will kill you, and Freddy will win this game. I'm like, but if you kill Freddy, I'll kill you, and then you get second place, which still prized at our thing. And then Freddy doesn't win his own draft, like this is his cube. He's used to winning. Let's do something different. And he looked me right in the eye and he's just like, nope, I don't negotiate with terrorists, and just swings sideways at me. And I'm like, okay. I killed him, and then Freddy killed me. Freddy won. I got second place. And then 4 months later, we're in the exact same pod with the exact same positions going on. And I'm like, Will, we've done this before. I'm telling you, once again, if you kill Freddy, you can have second place and pod out. But if you try to attack me, I will kill you. And Freddy will win again. Like, this is just like June. And he looked at me dead in the eye. He's like, I know it's like June. And he turns sideways on me again. So Freddy wins his own cube a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I shouldn't draft mono black all the time.
You got to
But
take what's open. That's
I
drafting
love
for
it.
you.
I love it. Oh,
But
man.
that sounds like so. That's a bad segue. Let's try that one again. So you've outlined why there's a couple of really good reasons to cube. What else you got for us?
Well, I think as far as regular cubes go, the again the best part of being able to play a limited environment is being able to flex your creative muscles. And a cube is sort of like building several decks and then figuring out how to clip that experience into a way so that everybody can get involved, right? So our hope is that even though building a cube is this huge quest, it's finding all these cards, it's balancing all these pieces. There's a lot of math involved. There's a lot of sleeves involved, time, maybe money, especially with sleeves, you name it. But ultimately, you're creating something. And if you get a chance to create something, generally you're going to feel good about it, I think. And on that note, real quick, we did say that we were going to talk about it later. Why Commander Cube?
Personally speaking, and again in the previous episode where we talked too much about ourselves, and don't be too harsh on us because it was my first podcast episode. So go back, listen to it. Don't judge me. Come back or come here. I love Commander. Period. It's my favorite way to play. I have been playing for years and years and years. I've played in a great many ways. Cube myself, popular draft, tournaments, all of it. But nothing gets me more than like hanging out. How did I word it? I want to drink beer and
Drink
eat
a beer,
tapas.
eat tapas. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to drink beer and eat tapas with my friends. And a lot of the things that boils down to is Commander and how it's considered to be more of a social format. Mainly because there's 4 people at the table instead of 2 most times. And that just automatically creates a more social environment. If you're playing it in like a tournament setting, even if you have a cube and you sit down with your friends and you draft with 8 people, you still break down into breakdowns. Mm-hmm. So a Commander cube let me do the things I like out of Commander the most while doing the fulfilling thing of building a cube. As you said, if you build something, you're usually going to feel pretty good about it. And so I can like combine those things. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I've been doing Commander so long and so hard that I actually forget how to balance out cards for like regular play.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think both of us have problems with that, and it's not that we don't know how to restrict ourselves because we play a lot of sealed formats. We know about making restrictions. It's more along the lines of the more you play with a particular group of people, the more you kind of get used to their idiosyncrasies and the things that they do. And then your mind automatically adjusts to making things. And sometimes that means taking things and turning them into default decisions, right?
mm-hmm.
It's like whenever you're playing green, you're going to throw Nature's Lore and 3 visits into the deck because there's no reason not to be running these very efficient ramp spells in a very efficient deck. And when you're playing constructed Commander, you have to be the adjudicator and say, I'm not going to do that. I know I can. I know that Sol Ring exists and that Sol Ring is the best colorless ramp spell in the game, and it's not illegal, so I'm going to play it in every single deck I play. And you have to be the one to go, no, I'm not gonna. And that's a thing. But when you do something like build a cube, you're still adjudicating, but what you're doing is you're saying, I don't want this to be anyone's experience when doing this cube. I want people to come out of this and not feel like, well, Matt brought this deck and completely blew me out. You know, you're trying to create an experience where everybody gets a chance to do something and have that fun and not leave feeling like they lost something, like that you, anytime someone leaves a cube experience, they shouldn't feel like they lost the tournament, you know?
Hmm.
They should feel like they got to have fun with their friends and do some cool stuff that they might not normally do. And maybe it inspires them to build a new deck, or maybe it inspires them to look at the way that they build decks. But either way, you have created an experience for them that is better than the experience that they would have had just highly efficiently building whatever it is they were going to build.
Hmm. And it's actually like thinking about it from that perspective. As you were talking, I remember another reason why I personally did it. Uh, and you'll probably find this in your own cube journey if you decide to take one. Is that you're going to find stuff that you want to do but you don't really want to do. And every Magic player has this. Like, oh, I really want to build like some janky aristocrats thing, but it's not going to do well on the tournament circuit. Or I want to build this commander, but these colors aren't really my jam. I found myself looking at a lot of cards, being like, "I'd love to play this somewhere." And actually, one of the ones that really did it for me, and you're gonna personally like this, is the Okon Zinderspult. I had, and actually a friend of ours, and actually a legit relative of mine, Amplitude TV. Here's shout out to our friend. Uh, had actually gifted me the partner pair and said, "Here, like I think you'd enjoy building this." And I says, "Yeah, I would." And it just never came up as one of the ones I wanted to build. And then I started thinking about a cube, and I was like, you know, this would be a great place to do this because here's an archetype that I don't really want to have on hand all the time. I don't want to commit the cards to it. I don't want to commit the brain power to it. But if I stick it in here, I can kind of build it and let everyone experience it. And I started looking through, and I ended up with a lot of cards that were doing stuff like that. And then I started looking a little deeper, and I saw things like, as I said, the test cards, the play test cards from Mystery Boosters. And I started looking at some of these, and I was like, man, these would be really cool in here. Like, I wish I could play with these, but I don't want to rule zero spellmorph
Mm-hmm.
the raised dead spellmorph raised dead. I don't want to rule
Yeah.
zero this for every time I sit down. But it looks like a really neat card, and there's going to be a lot of cards that come up as you're going through, and you're going to say, man, I really wish I could do blah, but it's banned somewhere. I really wish I could do blah, but my friends hate it. So
Mm-hmm.
it gives you this place, like a sandbox to go and play in with all this stuff that you're not really wanting to put anywhere else. It gives you a place to put it. I ended up doing all the partner pairs from Ikoria. I ended up doing all the partner pairs from Battle Bond. You know, something that I'm not super jacked to build on my own to have as a regular deck,
Mm-hmm.
but it gave it all a home. Also, I got tired of getting wrecked by people or being the person who wrecks somebody because power imbalance is too aggressive. But that's
This is why Okon and Zendersplit were mentioned, because I'm wild about being able to flip coins and take the game away from my frontal cortex and over to the lizard part of my brain that just wants to throw a dice at everything and try to see if I can win through that way. So
and and like I did want that too, but I didn't want to build it. You know, and also I will also say, like, I started building the cube right around the time that that deck got announced,
yeah.
and it like immediately took the wind out of my sails about it because I was like, oh, okay, so what's coming up? What's, what would I need? I start looking through stuff, and then I see all this list of cards that go really good, like anything that mentions coin flipping and all this other stuff, and then that
Mm-hmm.
deck gets announced, and I look through the play or through the deck list, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that one I was looking at, that one I was looking at, and I start
Mm-hmm.
checking it all off, and I was like, well, I don't want to just rebuild this precon,
Mm-hmm.
so I said that's going into, and it kind of fleshed out from there.
I think that's super cool though, and that's a big thing. The heads I wins, tails you lose precon. It's basically based off of the deck that Gavin Verhey, one of the game developers, built for himself. And you look at the thing, And like in the way I think about it is like Marvel Snap. I don't know if you have you played Marvel Snap, Adam?
I have played it a little.
Hmm. Well,
Uh,
there one of the things that's interesting on Marvel Snap is that while you're building your 12 card deck or whatever it is, they have filters that you can search cards through. And then they also have a button that says common filters and it mentions like game mechanics. So like destroy,
mhm.
discard, you can filter by 1 drops, 2 drops, 3 drops, whatever. And but it makes it so that you can basically kind of go, well, I want to build a deck that focuses on discard. You click discard and you literally see every card in the game that has discard in the thing. And then you can just push them and put them together. And it's not a bad thing for what they're trying to do. But if you were doing that with Magic, it would feel very bad. It would feel like you were just cut pasting something, right? It's like I found every card that flips a coin, I put all them into a deck together and did all this stuff. And the Heads I Win Tells You Lose basically does that with all of the ones that are worth playing, all the good ones, with the exception of Game of Chaos for some reason. But it's but so when you see that happen, it can be disappointing, right? And it can really take the wind out of your sails when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with it. So a place like a cube is a perfect place to put that because it's like I still want to play with it. I still kind of want to function with it. I just don't want to have a deck that's like everybody else's deck.
Mhm.
And if there's going to be a pre-con made that is exactly that, it's all the good flip cards and then some red blue stuff that you would play in any red blue deck. I don't want to just play that. That already exists.
Yeah,
Somebody did that. I want to do something new, and that's what Cube ends up being.
exactly. It's precisely how I felt. Thank you for summarizing my thoughts better than I could.
Oh, I just have one of those days where when we're in sync, we're in super sync. When we're not in sync, it's like two cats just strangling meows at each other.
Fighting over a dead bird.
Right?
Uh, I think one like
Politely.
politely. I think one final point that I think I'd like to touch on before we start
Mhm.
working on closing out is that, and this is going to be like an overarching theme I think between you and I in general. Uh, Cube has the potential of being like a very expensive venture. We've discussed this. If you want to purchase all the cards, or if you want to uh, purchase a bunch of cards and then pick the ones you like, you need all the sleeves, all this other stuff. Most of us are going to find some like pretty sweet box to put it in if you get pretty invested. I went with one of the Game Genix game layers because I friggin' love those boxes. They're a really nice box. Again, not sponsored by anybody because this is episode 1, but strongly recommend looking at like Game Genix products in general if you're looking at any sort of major storage. Uh, but one thing that is important to note is we are pro proxy.
Mhm.
Pro proxy basically all around. Magic is an expensive game if you want it to be, but it's a bunch of pieces of cardboard that have some pretty art on them, and Control P is a function on your computer.
Yeah.
If you want to play a card and you don't want to spend, I don't know, let's say Gaia's Cradle. What's that at nowadays, right?
$700 to $800, somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
that sounds gross.
Hmm.
I don't want to pay that, but I could print it and I could
Hmm.
put it in my cube. And it's a cube, especially, is one of the nice places. We talk a lot about in like the Commander discourse on the internets in general that like for the most part proxies are socially acceptable now, almost being printed by wizards, as some people will put it.
Hmm.
And having these proxies in your deck is usually socially acceptable, but sometimes people get a little rangy about it because they spent $700 to $800 on their Gaia's Cradle and you spent
Hmm.
10 cents.
Yeah.
And so it can create some shenanigans there, but a cube is yours. The cube is your game. Basically, you're putting on your game developer hat and borrowing the ideas from another company and organizing them in a way where you're making your own board game.
Hmm.
Lots of other games are just like Magic, but self-contained. I know several of them that were a completely self-contained draft environment about an entirely different set of cards,
Hmm.
and you're just borrowing cards. So print them. If you find yourself with 432 cards that you want to put into a thing and you don't own a single one of them, you don't have to go buy them. Control P.
Yeah. And understand that both Adam and I believe in supporting the things that you love. And if you do like the game and you can afford to support it, maybe you'll buy cards later. Sometimes it's, but in my opinion, as far as those things are concerned, especially with something like a cube, which is a huge endeavor, but like we said, lots of math, lots of balancing, lots of tweaking along the way. Why would you put excess funds that you may not have into setting up something that you might immediately change after the first 2 times you do the cube because you find out it's too strong, it's too weak, it doesn't fit with the themes as well as you thought it did, or whatever. Be willing to blueprint out your experience, and that's what a cube is. It's creating a blueprint for an experience. So you never go with the first draft of a blueprint. It's never the way it works. No one makes the first draft of a blueprint and then builds off of it. Several drafts, several iterations, playtesting and playtesting and playtesting. If you cannot invest in the game in a way that lets you do that, don't. Mm-hmm. That's why we are Pro Proxy. And that's one of the things that we've always agreed on. If you are out there and you want to be able to enjoy the game, you should not be paying for pieces that you cannot afford just to have to resell them for less so that you can buy the piece that you actually need. It becomes a vicious cycle of money laundering, and it's no good. It's no bueno. So if you need what you need, print what you need, do what you need to do, and then when you have the ability to support the game that you love, do so when you can. Mm-hmm. Support your LGS. Support your support the groups that sell you things at the right thing. Do you care if I go on a quick tangent on this before we leave?
Not at all.
Something to remember. A lot of people talk about support your LGS, and I 100% agree that if your LGS is full of cool people who do cool things for your community, absolutely support your LGS. If your LGS is a store that always wildly overcosts things, who does not care about the community that it cultivates in its halls, and just lets anybody come in there and do whatever dang bad stuff they want to do to people, if they don't support tournament pricing in a way that is conducive for you to come back again and spend money there, you don't have to support your local game store. And no one should be giving you grief about that. I've had great experiences with local game stores, but I lived in St. Louis where there were 10, and there were 4 that I frequented often, and there was 1 that I worked in, and then there were 6 more. So do the math on that. Some of them don't make the cut, and you do not have to support people you do not like. That's why I say support good content. And that includes a game store. Support good content.
And if you like supporting good content and supporting people who like to include people, you can support us over on Patreon at Unlimited Commander. Now that's a segue.
That was really good.
If you liked what we had to say, consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support goes directly to growing and improving the show.
You can also like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Make sure to comment or leave a review. The cast can also be found on Twitter at Unlimited Commander.
You can find Matt's Twitch, Twitter, and other YouTube projects at knowledgepoolmtg.com.
And Adam can be found on Twitch and Twitter at Adamus_Prime86.
Our theme song is Polaroid by Harris Heller, licensed by Creative Commons.